Welcome to the KR Films Entertainment channel. Today I will show you a comedy drama film from 2016 titled Captain Fantastic. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. In the mountainous wilderness of Washington, then Cash lives with his 6 children, but Davin rally in Keeler, Vespershire, and the children's names were made up by their parents. They could be unique and nobody else in the world has them. They have no contact with society, it's just them coexisting with nature. Their mother used to live with them too, but she had to be hospitalized big. As if a bipolar disorder, Ben raises his children to be self-reliant and not to depend on technology or the American system which he loves. He teaches them how to hunt, identify plants, purify their own water and cook with a catch, and so they keep a rigorous training regime to stay physically fit and athletic, and this includes learning how to use weapons and defend themselves. Then also teaches them how to think critically, giving them advanced text to read and testing them on them every day, passing on to them his and his wife's left-wing anarchist ideals that made them leave society behind in the first place. No matter how gruesome or complicated their questions are, then doesn't keep anything from his children, not even the youngest ones, and explains concepts like death and abuse to them without sparing any details. When but Davin catches his first year on his own, Ben puts some animal blood on his forehead and makes him one of the animal's organs, as he declares that he's finally become a man. Later in the evening, after reading around the fire, the family takes out their instruments and plays I'm Happy tunes while dancing. The following day, Ben and Beau David drive their bus to town, where both Davin has trouble interacting with girls his age, while Ben sells some of the stuff he crafts. So David checks their PO box. There he finds a bunch of letters from the universities has been applying to in secret, and he's surprised. They find he's been accepted into all of them. Then goes to a bar to call his sister Harper, asking for news about his wife, and Harper can only cry while she informs him last night Leslie died by our own hand. After they return to the forest, Ben spends moments under a waterfall mourning the love of his life before returning to his kids to give them the news, promising that nothing will change as they all start trying to. Enraged by grief, really takes a knife as he curses and almost stabs his father with it, but he stops himself before doing anything drastic and begins stabbing while instead cursing and telling Ben he hates him. That night, Ben looks through their old paperwork to find Leslie will. The following morning, the kids are still put through the usual training routine, but they want to know about their mother's funeral. Then goes back to town to call his father-in-law Jack, who has never approved of their lifestyle and now threatens Ben with arresting him if he shows up at Legalie's funeral, showing no care for her last wish to be cremated and not buried. Leslie's mother Abigail picks up the phone next, telling Ben a funeral will be in 5 days in their church in New Mexico, but she doesn't think it's a good idea for him become either. The kids aren't happy to hear this, but then reminds them that his getting arrested could mean losing custody of them. After spending the entire night dreaming of Leslie, then wakes up to find his kids dressed up and ready to go rescue their mother, so he reminds them again it's impossible and sends them to train today their rock climbing, during which really slips and hurts his hand instead of helping him or comforting. And though Ben guides him to withstand the pain and keep going, reminding him there will be times he'll have nobody to help and he needs to know how to survive on those occasions. Once training is over, then notices the kids' mood is really low, so he decides they'll be going to the funeral. After all, they spend long hours on the road, only parking to sleep or stopping by the bank to withdraw some money on their second day of traveling. They're stopped by the police, who checks Ben's license and registration, then enters the bus when he notices the kids aren't at school and there is a bunch of books around to scare him off. By David explains they're homeschooled under the eyes of God, and together with his siblings they began singing a Christian song. This is enough for the cop to leave them alone. After many hours of traveling, they stop near a floor of she, but the kids don't dare shoot them because they're just standing there. Since they're hungry, they go to a diner and the siblings get excited about possibly trying out some foods they never had before, like hot dogs, pancakes and cola, which Ben calls poison water. Seeing as there isn't any real food on the menu, Ben takes the kids away without ordering and they go to a supermarket instead. There Ben pretends to have a heart attack, and while everyone of the market is busy checking on him, his kids steal some food and run out of the place without being noticed. Only one of them stays behind to give Ben a fake pill that he takes to pretend to feel better so he can leave as well. Afterward, they go to a nearby park to eat what they stole, and Ben reveals a cake because they'll be celebrating in advance Noam Chomsky Day, a holiday they made up after the famous philosopher. Ben has brought weapons for everyone as gifts, but really it isn't happy. He wishes they could celebrate Christmas like normal people. His father asks him to present a case and make a good argument, but really it isn't in the mood for it and just returns to the bus they're traveling. Eventually takes them to Ben's sister's house. Harper lives with her husband Dave and their sons Justin and Jackson, who make fun of his siblings for not knowing famous brands. Things get awkward over dinner because Ben doesn't hold back when it comes to sensitive topics and explains everything in detail, which Harper and Dave don't want their kids to listen to. They go outside and argue about it, so Ben apologizes for not respecting the way things are done in her own. Then the kids come out too because they'll be sleeping in the garden, ignoring the fact Harper prepared the rec room for them. The following morning Harper and Dave confront Ben and telling the kids need to go to school and learn about the real world too, which Ben responds by calling her boys and Zion over. Harper sends can't answer with a Bill of Rights as pets icon, proving the education they're getting from him is just fine. Shortly after they go back to the road, and after a bunch of hours traveling, this time they take a break at a motorhome camping. Say they're both. David meet a girl his age called Claire who thinks he's a little weird but enjoyed talking to him anyway, but David tells him they're from Paris, that his dad is writing a book and his mom works on some classified stuff for the government, but he fails to understand many cultural references she makes. They still end up making out, which blows but David's mind, and when Claire's mother finds them, he'd yes on his knees and asks for Claire's hand in marriage after giving a touching speech about how she opened his mind and his horizons. The two women laugh thinking he's joking and return to their own band the next day. Oh, David won't stop looking at her through the window while they leave. After such a long trip, they finally make it to New Mexico, so they park the bus on the church's parking lot and sleep there for the night, where Ben dreams of Leslie again. The following morning the family puts on the best clothes they have and end of the church. In the middle of the funeral mass, hurting bad looks from Leslie parents Jack and Abigail when a priest reaches the part of his speech where he names Legalie's husband and kids, then takes the chance to interrupt him and give a speech of his own. He tells everyone that Leslie was Buddhist and hated organized religion, so she would be hating this farewell, and on her will she has to be cremated while her loved ones celebrate life with song and dance, then her ashes should be thrown down the toilet. Jack can't stand there, so he calls security to drag Ben out and the kids leave with him. Once the mass is over, Jack and Abigail come over to say hello to the kids, but Jack tells Ben he's the worst thing that happened to his family and that he can't come to the funeral, but the kids can then refuses, not wanting anyone to take the kids from him, but he does get on the bus with them to follow the cars in order to stop them from burying his wife. The kids begged him not to do that because it'll get him arrested and they don't want to lose him like they lost their mother, so Ben gives in and drives away so they can camp at a park in the evening. While fooling around really entails by Dave and that he thinks Ben made their mother crazy and that he's dangerous. He also starts crying as he calls out his brother for thinking that their lives are good and their father is perfect. This gives David a lot to think about, so he finally makes up his mind and shows Ben all the university acceptance letters. They aren't just any university either, Yale, Stanford, Princeton, Harvard, Dartmouth, Mitt, Brown, all of them very prestigious names. Then thinks it's impressive, but he's also her, and he starts ranting about the fact his son has been lying to him and acting behind his back all this time until but David interrupts him to tell him it was his mom that helped him apply in the first place, crying, but David tells him he actually doesn't know anything about anything unless it comes from a book that Ben made them all freaks and that Leslie understood that, then leave before Ben can answer. Nee comes out next and gives Ben a note from Riley and that says he's staying with his grandparents. Ben takes the bus with the kids and goes to Jack's house to get Riley and back, but Riley is angry and yells at him that he killed his mother, that he overheard them arguing because his mother wanted to live somewhere else and he did, and that he hated him. After he storms out of the room, then tries going after him, but Jack stops by shooting an arrow near his head. He starts pointing out all the things he considers weird or dangerous about Riley and state he doesn't go to see cool. He was gifted a weapon on a made-up holiday. He stole food from a market and he badly hurt his hand, not to mention the bruises in his body. Jack considers this child abuse and tells Ben they'll soon be fighting him in court over the custody of the children, but for now Riley and stays there since Ben doesn't want to leave without his son. Jack calls the police, so Ben rushes out of the house before he gets caught. He's still doesn't give up though, hidden in the bushes. Then and the children wait for the cops to leave. Then he sends Vesper to climb on the roofs to rescue her brother through a window before she makes it there, though one of the roof tiles breaks and she falls down first on a car and that on the ground. Vesper's rushed to the hospital and after running some tests the doctor tells Ben that she has a concussion but thankfully no brain damage, just a broken leg. He points out however that if she had hit her spine a few millimeters lower she could have died or gotten paralysis. While Vesper recovers, the family stays at Jack's house and Ben watches how his kids actually have a good time with her grandfather. Abigail take the opportunity to give him some letters Leslie wrote before Ben asked her parents to get her treatment. They tell her mother that she doesn't need to pick her up anymore because she and Ben had created the perfect place to live in, that her children would be philosopher kings, and all this made her very happy, so she wants to get better there with them. Realizing he's made a mistake, then tells the children from now on they'll live with their grandparents. The kids protest but Ben sticks to his decision, explaining that he would only ruin their lives after asking Jack to take good care of them, and shaking his hand Ben leaves on the bus crying. When he stops at a market for some food, he decides to also buy an electric razor and shave his beard to start this new phase in his life. The following night while he's camping, he's found by his children who are surprised by the lack of beard. Really, and tells him he doesn't actually hate him, he just wishes he had helped their mother, and Ben agrees before apologizing. After quoting Chomsky, they finally convince their father to rescue their mother, so the family makes their way to the cemetery. On their bus were both. David shaves his head to match his dad. When it comes to marking a new phase in their lives at the cemetery, they dig out their mother's casket, and after refilling the grey nobody can tell is empty, they take Leslie to the beach, where after a touching speech they cremate her while singing her favorite song Sweet Child of Mine. Sometime later they go to the airport to throw her ashes in the toilet as she wanted. Then they say their goodbyes to David, who was flying abroad to see the world. From then on, Ben and his kids start living in a little house in town. He still teaches them how to coexist with nature, but he also allows them to go to school, finding a perfect middle point between his ideologies and their well-being. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.